everybody, good morning from Little Rascal 2 with Missy, Jen, and Georgie, and welcome to another mini adventure. We've been using these, and good morning Missy, Jen, good morning Georgie.
Good morning Rosie girl, good morning tubers.
Good morning YouTubers, and we've been using these as ways to tune up and get ready for more extensive travel, and so far Little Rascal 2 has not disappointed us with its size, the way we've outfitted it, the way we've been able to cook and sustain ourselves on our overnighters. It's been real good. It's been a pleasant surprise for me how well things have worked and how differently I feel about being in Little Rascal compared to the Rolling Rancho, our 1974 GMC, and even our 1988 Coachman camper van. I guess one of the reasons, Jen, is we actually want to travel and go places. You know, we don't want to be sitting stationary night after night in a Walmart parking lot or not that there's anything against it, because a lot of RVers love the RV parks, and I'm sure we'll be staying in some once in a while. But I'm saying we like to be on the go, we like to do things, and when we need to do it, we drop back and we hit the hotels and things like that. So that's kind of our plan. And what are your thoughts? So far, so good, Missy Jen?
So far, so good, yeah.
Missy Jen took a lot of time to, I tried initially to address the sleeping situation here. And little by little, I think Missy Jen's last purchase of a memory foam kind of put us over the top with all of our cushions and stuff. We feel like we have a nice sleeping area now, and that's very important, of course. If you don't sleep well, then it's not worth traveling. So that's our top priority. And then, of course, the cooking's been a dream, and everything has been like,
yeah, that worked out pretty good.
Yeah, why would you feel you have to eat out if you could just eat that well and just cook and enjoy, enjoy the road life? Well, that was then. This is now, because turn the page, it's a whole new ball game today, because on our, what I'm calling here, the Bad Boys Adventure Tour of 2017, we are going to be heading right into the mouth of the lion here and kind of injecting ourselves travel-wise into some of the most notorious history, certainly in California and a lot of the United States. And particularly we're going to be checking in at the most notorious state prison, probably in the United States, with more people on death row than probably Texas and Florida combined, ready to go here. We're going to check that out today, and there's going to be some interesting side notes on that. And that's all a lead up to heading into a town, Missy Jen, that's become synonymous with radicalism, protest, violence, and in the past even death. And I'm talking, of course, about Berkeley, California. And we all have seen the Antifa combats. We've seen the Battle of Berkeley in April of 2017. We've had violence in August of 2017, and we're heading up for Free Speech Week beginning this weekend. So you can almost feel it in your bones that more stuff is coming. And when we get down here, we'll probably see a buildup of the beginning fringes of a radicalism that's assembling there. Remember, this is a country of traditional free speech, and free speech,
the First Amendment
and free speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. And a lot's changed over 200 years in this country in the way we thought about being Americans and expressing our dissent as Americans. And we've reached a point now where what we'll see on this trip used to be the epicenter and the very heart of the concept of free speech and dissent thought in America has now turned 180 degrees around to a point where no dissent is being tolerated within Berkeley. So on this tour, we're going to be exploring, we're going to be having fun, We'll be doing some scenic things too, cooking our meals, but we're going to be exploring the history of why has this happened in Berkeley? What makes the University of California and Berkeley so unique? Why there? Why not Ohio? Why not Michigan? Why not Yale University or Columbia? What has it been about Berkeley in particular that has made it such a flashpoint in radical protest, radical history, and radical violence? We're going to be trying to eat and prepare at least our dinner tonight in, well, there's over 6,000 public parks in the United States, and arguably this one has the most violent and deadly history of any of those parks. And that, of course, is the infamous People's Park down in Berkeley. Well, you got a lot to look forward to on this trip, that's for sure. And, we are, I will say, we are packing heat this trip. This is considered our living quarters. And under law, you are allowed to carry in those situations. We're also allowed to carry in California if your weapon is locked in a case and you carry your ammunition separately, which of course we always do. So we're not stupid. We're law-abiding people. But this trip that we're going on is no joke coming up down here. So we want to take some steps to protect ourselves in the event that we possibly get caught up in some type of melee or some type of mayhem down here. All right? If that doesn't whet your appetite for adventure, as I told you guys in the beginning, when Missy Jen and I get on the road, it's not going to be same old, same old. Hey, here's this beautiful thing. Here's this historic. You're going to be seeing stuff that you rarely see on YouTube and exploring this history and these things right down and dirty and ground level. If you want pretty flights and fancy dancy videos and oohs and ahs, go elsewhere. But if you want some real kick-ass history and adventures, well, guess what? You've come to the right place. On with the show. Welcome to San Quentin.
In a quarter mile, you will arrive at your destination.
California's death row, 700 plus people waiting execution, almost 4,000 prisoners. Point San Quentin. Get some video on the way back here. Beautiful homes on the right overlooking. This is called Point San Quentin. You may be wondering, what would you have to do to be housed in a facility like this? Well, you'd have to be a special kind of really, really bad person. And this houses some of the worst on earth. And unfortunately, since the death penalty was suspended in 2006, many of these behind me have not met their final justice, as many wish that they probably would, especially some of the families that have had to endure trials, appeals, and to sustain to final convictions and then not see justice carried out has been terrible. When I first moved here in 1998, but in the early 2000s there was a terrible murder that took place right across the bay here at the Berkeley Marina. Scott Peterson, a fertilizer salesman that was infatuated with Amber Fry, actually murdered his wife with her unborn son, weighted down the body with blocks, and on Christmas Eve came down here to the Berkeley Marina across the bay, floated out in a boat under cover of the tarp was the bodies, and threw it overboard. Well, unfortunately for Scott Peterson, the body floated up. It was not properly tied down. It washed ashore, and his terrible deed was discovered. He's housed in here, and we'll tell you a little bit later about my close call with Scott Peterson within the facility here today. I think it's kind of macabre, and it's a bit fascinating too. But we've got other ones too. People always ask about Charles Manson. Yes, Charles Manson was here for quite a few years, but he was transferred out when his medical condition got that so bad that he couldn't be properly cared for in here. But there's been other ones in here too. There was one of the most notorious, Alejandro Avila, and in 2004 or 2003, he murdered a 5-year-old girl, convicted in 2005. He is on death row. Was sentenced to death in 2005. There's other ones here too. Lawrence Bittaker, a serial killer, convicted of murdering 5 young women, convicted, sentenced to death in 1981. The Vincent brothers, the notorious Vincent brothers, convicted and sentenced to death in the shooting and stabbing of 5 members of his family, including 3 children, sentenced to death in 2007. Albert Greenwood Brown, sentenced to death in 1982 for the 1980 rape murder of 15-year-old Susan Louise Jordan. Can you imagine being a young adolescent and having that crime wreaked on you? That sort of a horror story? That's the kind of person that resides there now. Richard Allen Davis, the terrible murderer of Polly Klaas, the young gal in Petaluma who was having an overnight with her friend. He snuck in the window, abducted her, murdered her, and left the body on the side of the road in a ditch. And had his sentencing, the judge asked him if he had anything else to add before sentencing. He just lifted his two hands to the family and just flipped them off in the courtroom. What a disgrace. What a low life he turned out to be. The upshot, the good part of that was the Polly Klaas Foundation for Missing and Exploited Children was found, and many, many children that were lost have been recovered as a result of that tragedy. There was one of the most notorious, Alejandro Avila, and in 2000 and even in 2004 or 2003, he murdered a 5-year-old girl, convicted in 2005. He is on death row. Was sentenced to death in 2005. There's other ones here too. Lawrence Bittaker, a serial killer convicted of murdering 5 young women, convicted, sentenced to death in 1981. The Vincent brothers, the notorious Vincent brothers, convicted and sentenced to death in the shooting and stabbing of 5 members of his family, including 3 children, sentenced to death in 2007. Albert Greenwood Brown, sentenced to death in 1982 for the 1980 rape murder of 15-year-old Susan Louise Jordan. Can you imagine being a young adolescent and having that crime wreaked on you? That sort of a horror story? That's the kind of person that resides there now. David Carpenter, the trailside killer, sentenced to death in 1984 and again in 1988. Dean Carter, a serial killer convicted of murdering 4 women, sentenced to death in 1985. Douglas Clark, the notorious Sunset Strip killer, convicted with Carol Bundy of multiple murders in Los Angeles, sentenced to death in 1983. And finally, Kevin Cooper, convicted for the hatchet and knife massacre of the Runyon family, sentenced to death in 1985. I'll tell you, when you talk about bad boys in America and bad boys within the state of California, this place has the worst of the worst. The right place to kick off the Bad Boys tour